back to my channel. Just in case you're new here, I'm Brooke McQuaid and I'm 28 years old. I film reading vlogs, weekly vlogs, travel vlogs, and yeah, just show you what I get up to in my everyday life. So please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. My Instagram is Brooke McQuaid as well. And my Goodreads is also Brooke McQuaid. I'm filming a monthly wrap up and I'm so excited because this is going to be 2 months. It's going to be May and June. I was away for 3 weeks that fell over May and June. So we're combining these two. I've recently been in Europe, so you'll see that there's some travel vlogs a few videos back, and I'm just interrupting the travel vlogs to give you the TBR prompts for July, which I filmed just before, and my monthly wrap-up video. So definitely keep an eye out for more travel vlogs as well, and my favourite place that I went to in Europe is coming up. But alas, this is a monthly wrap-up video, so let's actually get into it. Also, I just need to shout out, look at this cute jumper. It says Surreal Tea. It is an ACOTAR reference, and I got it from Book by Jess. If I remember, I'll pop the link in the description for you so you can have a look at the stuff. In the months of May and June, I read a total of 10 books. That's a little less than the last couple of months I've read, but still very happy with it. I read 3 new releases, 6 fantasies, 1 mystery, and then I think the rest were romances, and I had 2 5 stars. So I had a great reading time, and the lowest rating I gave was 3 stars, so really not that bad. But let's get into it. I thought that we could start with the 3 new releases. So I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is the little novella that goes along with the Powerless duology. It is from Payton's point of view, and it's at the same time as the first book, Powerless. I also just got Reckless in the mail today, and I'm so excited. But I love this. This is a little fantasy book. I gave it 4 stars only because it's quite short. It's a novella, but I really encourage you, if you liked the first Powerful book, to give this a read. Read it before Reckless. It was great, and I ate it all up. The next new release that I read during May was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. I've read all the books so far, and I think that this one I rate second. My favorite is Beach Read, which is quite confusing for a lot of people because most people's favorite is Happy Place, but yeah, I loved it. I love this book too. So with Funny Story, you're following 2 main characters, female and a male. The female, at the start of the book, her fiance goes on his bucks party, and then he comes home from the bucks and he tells her, "I'm so sorry, we can't go through this wedding. I'm actually in love with my childhood best friend." Yeah, I know, on the night of his bucks. So then she has to find a new place to live. Her whole life is up in the air now. So what does she do? She goes and moves in with her ex-fiance's new partner's ex. So like the guy equivalent of what happened. Just a beautiful story about friendship, found family. Like, it's very witty, it makes me laugh, makes me giggle. I love the main male character, Miles, and I ate this up. I highly recommend it. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, so I really recommend it, and it was so good. There's fake dating, close proximity. I really recommend. And then the final new release that I read was Abby Jimenez, Just for Summer. But before I touch on that, I did also read Yours Truly. So these 2 books kind of go together, and then there's also Part of Your World. They're interconnected romance books. You can read them by themselves, but I would recommend reading Part of Your World, then Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer, because you do get to see the characters from the first 2 books in the final book. But I think I might have a new favourite romance author. I'm not sure. Like, I love Emily Henry, I love Ellie Hazelwood, but Abby Jimenez, oh, her books are so good. I say this a lot, but I love a romance book where it's adult romance, there's depth to the characters, and you get more of an insight into their actual personal lives and their upbringings, just not this romanticized version of a relationship. So Yours Truly, you're following 2 main characters, both are doctors. Female main character has recently gone through a divorce, so she kind of like off men right now. You know, she doesn't really want to go through the dating world, and then enter in this new doctor, and this new doctor gives off a very bad impression to her because he's actually very socially anxious, but she doesn't know that at the time. So she thinks he's a bit snobbish and standoffish. Male main character has also recently gone through a separation. So you've got like that kind of angst, not really looking for a relationship. I love this. This involves like little love notes, which is just a beautiful way of communicating. I just think that's stunning. And I am not going to tell you anything more about this book because I really recommend that you pick it up. It has such a great and powerful depiction of social anxiety, and she did a really good job. And it's the male main character that had social anxiety, not the female, which I loved because I do think that men's mental health can be a bit stigmatized still. So love what she did with that book. So this one I think I gave 4.5 stars. And then I read Just for the Summer. I read this straight after yours truly. It is the only book that I have felt the need to tab. And I actually only tabbed it maybe halfway through, so I need to go through and read it again. But this book was amazing. The male main character in here is my new book boyfriend. His name is Justin, and he is just the definition of if he wanted to, he would, because the amount of stuff that he did for the female main character is beautiful. His love language was definitely acts of service. I don't want to tell you too much about this book either, but I beg you to pick it up. It is beautiful. I would check trigger warnings just a little bit because it does touch on PTSD, a bit of depression and anxiety, and your female main character did grow up with an emotionally neglectful mother. So if those topics could be triggering, I do think check that out. Also, if you have read this book, all I'm going to say is the unicorn floaty. Stop, that was so beautiful. So those are the 3 new releases that I read. Let's go to the fantasy section because I've been in my Sarah J Maas era. There are, as if the sweatshirt's not showing that. I've already read all of Agatha and now I've read all of Crescent City. So during the month of May and June, I read House of Sky and Breath. This is the second Crescent City book. 5 stars for me. I know that Crescent City is not everyone's favorite, but I loved it. Like, I don't know if it's because I went in with low expectations because everyone said I wouldn't like it. I also did listen to a lot of this book on Audible because she is chunky, so I do think that that helped me. And the third book I listened to on the plane going from Europe to Australia, so I had a lot of time to focus on that. I don't have the third book currently on me because it's currently in the tall paperback form and I don't want to buy it yet because it has to match my thing. So I gave the second book 5 stars and I gave this third book 4 stars. The third book, I can get where people come from. Like, the ending is a little bit like, oh, that's what happens. But I still really recommend the series. I did read it before Throne of Glass, so I don't know if that impacts my reading at all. The only thing I would say is definitely read Agatha before you read Crescent City. But that is the first 2 books that I read by Sarah J Maas. And then, speaking of Throne of Glass, I finally started. So I read Assassin's Blade first. I know that there are different ways that you can read it. I'd recommend checking out TikTok for the different ways that you might want to read it, but I've just decided to go chronologically. I gave this 3 stars. It's the lowest rating of the books so far in this monthly wrap-up, but that's because it's actually, it looks like it's just one straight novel, but it's more like 5 little novellas. And they were great, and they kind of follow chronologically. You just get gaps in between the 5 stories. The only thing was that quite a lot happened, and there was like quite some emotional stuff that happened, and I just would have liked the story dragged out more. But I also understand that this is kind of just to get me into the character's mind and into the main character's perspective of her upbringing and her life before I go on to this series. So I'm sure that once I read the other books, maybe this will be more impactful for me. I'm not sure, but still recommend it. And I'm nervous to continue the Throne of Glass series because I have 7 books left, but I did really like it. Next, I read Bride. This is by Ali Hazelwood. It's another book that gets a lot of slack. Like, a lot of people don't like it. I can see why, but I ate this up. I think I read it in maybe 24 hours or 48 hours at most. I gave it 4.5 stars. It gets half a star off for the nodding scene. If you've read it, you know what I mean. So this is like a romantasy between a vampire and a werewolf. They go into this marriage for like political benefit of each other. And then you obviously follow along and you see a relationship stem. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but I loved it. I gobbled it up. If you're into vampires and werewolves, I really think you will enjoy it. And it's the third Ali Hazelwood book that I've read, so loving her work. The next one we read is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This was my book club book. It is classed as a historical fantasy. So what this book is about is you have Addie LaRue, who's the main character, and she makes a deal with this kind of like a god. It's like a god after dark. You are warned not to make deals with gods that appear after dark because they can have ill intent. But she finds herself in a situation where she needs to make a deal. And she wants freedom. She wants to live forever and have freedom. Unfortunately, she didn't know that coming with the freedom and the living forever would mean that everybody forgets her. So if she walks into a room, as soon as she walks out, the person will forget they even met her. And then she goes along for 300 years, no one remembers her, and then she finally comes across this guy who can recognize her and remember her. And then there's a lot of emotional depth. The ending, I cried. Like the ending, it was so beautifully written. I think I gave it 4 stars. Historical fantasy is not my favorite, but this book really got me. It went from the past to present, which is not normally my preferred way of reading, but it really showed like in the present why she fought certain things and why certain patterns you saw, because it would go back to the past and show where that trigger or that story came from. And the mailman character in here is really beautiful as well, but I don't want to tell you much about him because I think you should read it. Camera is flashing at me, so I'm going to quickly hurry up and finish the last book. But the last one I read was Killer Instincts by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's the second book in the Natural series. I'm currently reading the 3rd book. It is a mystery thriller, definitely a YA thriller. You're following a set of teenagers who are all naturally gifted in certain skills. For example, profiling, reading emotions, finding out lies, that kind of thing. There's love triangles in there. There's like murder mysteries that they're solving. I loved this book. I loved the way that it ended. I'm enjoying the next book. I just gobbled them up. I really recommend this series. I'm a very beginner in a thriller, but I can handle this. It still scares me, like, because there are chapters at the end where you'll read from like a serial killer's perspective, and that freaks me out. But I love it. I really recommend the series, and this ending got me. I'm also still trying to like work out who did it every time I read it, and I don't get it. So she is writing really great mysteries. Okay, I am gonna love you and leave you. If I don't get the full outro out, it's because the camera went. But those are the 10 books that I read during my wrap up. We had quite a good variety of like historical fantasy, urban fantasy, romantasy, mystery, romance. Really, really recommend it. Definitely check me out on Goodreads, where you can stay up to date with all of the reading as I go. I'm starting to get better at actually leaving reviews. Check out my previous video where it's my TBR, Prompt Judge picks my July reads. Any recommendations of books you think I should read, let me know in the description below. Also, keep an eye out for the next video, which is going to be the Dolomites travel vlog from my time in Europe. See you in my next video. Bye!